Sixers. What are we gonna do with you? This has literally been the same story with you the past 4 decades. Let's go over that history, shall we? You are the NBA champions, sweeping the Lakers, getting revenge for last year, courtesy of newly acquired Moses Malone, to complement the formidable unit of Dr. Julius Erving and Andrew Toney. What does the future hold? Let us continue. You draft a young upcoming stud by the name of Charles Barkley while maintaining your core roster, and it looks like the 76ers are once again knocking on the door. But they get smothered by their older brother. Congratulations! Your legendary head coach Billy Cunningham decides to retire in his prime. Andrew Toney suffers a foot injury, so he misses almost the entire season. And you lose Moses Malone for the playoffs. You still came close to beating the Milwaukee Bucks, but it's not enough. You're taken far beyond your limits, and you lose in a heartbreaker. Oh, man. You traded Moses Malone away? The fuck, man? Well, who did you get for him? Jeff Ruland, who would go on to only play 5 measly games and was forced to retire due to injuries. Oh, God. Well, you still have the number 1 overall pick, and you gave that away, too? For who? Roy Hinson, who would only last a couple seasons. Well done. Get eliminated by the Milwaukee Bucks again, this time in the first round. I have good news for you. Dr. Julius Erving has chosen to call it a career. The team falls to shit and Matt Guokas is fired in the middle of the season. You draft Charles Smith and immediately trade him to the Clippers. A couple spots later, somebody would take Mitch Richmond. Oops. Well, you're still good enough to make the playoffs. Now go get yourself swept by the Knicks in the first round, will you? That would be greatly appreciated. You're starting to see a recurring trend with their drafting. They traded back with the Seattle Supersonics for some reason, and they used to pick to draft Shawn Kemp. Holy Christ, man. We're gonna brush over the 90s. Sorry, it's way out of your reach. It's the GOAT Michael Jordan's reign of terror. Besides, Charles Barkley decides he wants out as he's done all he could do, and he wants a fresh start. You become shitty enough to draft Allen Iverson in the middle of the decade. Try not to waste his career too, guys. Holy fuck! Allen Iverson is a beast! And you finally make it back to the NBA Finals after all these years. Congratulations! You've won the NBA championship as Allen Iverson stands triumphantly over Tyronn Lue. Just kidding! You get completely run over by Shaq Diesel, and your limp carcass is bitten repeatedly by the Black Mamba in the 4 subsequent games. Turns out Allen Iverson is a fucking idiot who can't get out of his own way off the court. There was a domestic dispute where he allegedly threw his wife out of the house naked. But that's okay, due to the lack of evidence, the charges were quickly dropped. Well, okay then, back to basketball. They're still a formidable unit, and their championship aspirations are still intact. But the Celtics are there to put a stop to that. When Larry Brown has had enough of your bullshit, then there's definitely trouble brewing. He would abruptly leave, and a couple years later, he would find a new home with the Detroit Pistons, and he would actually win a championship there, which, by the way, never should have happened, but still. Shame he couldn't win one in Philly. After the departure of Larry Brown, the 76ers descended into mediocrity, and Iverson would clash with coaches for the next few years, and finally he reached an epiphany. The 76ers are a shithole, and he decides he wants to get the fuck out. He eventually gets traded to the Denver Nuggets, so therefore, you go from mediocrity to sub-mediocrity. Enjoy. Allen Iverson decides he has a change of heart and wants to come back, but he doesn't even last a full year, as your sub-mediocrity continues. You hire Doug Collins, who is in the old man yelling at cloud stages of his career, and you would finish with an exact 500 record. And you would get curb stomped by the Miami Heat super team. Next. Nicely done. You finish slightly above 500, and you get a free playoff series win over the Bulls due to them being goddamn idiots and leaving Derrick Rose in there too long. We felt nothing. Just like the Celtics do as they bring you back to reality in the very next round. You trade Andre Iguodala, a cornerstone for your team, in a multi-deal trade that would land you perennial coattail rider Andrew Bynum, who would go on to not play a single game for you. Good job. And you finish below 500, and Doug Collins decides to hang it up. Enter the infamous duo of Sam Hinkie and Brett Brown. You see, this is a new era where they're legendarily bad, but you see they have a plan. You just need to trust the process. And that is to be bad on purpose so you can get high draft picks to get your future stars. The first one up on the docket, Michael Carter-Williams, who would only last a few measly seasons. Yeah, totally worth passing on Giannis. You stupid. Year 2 of the process. And this time you have 2 first-round draft picks. The first one you take Joel Embiid, who would suffer a foot injury and would miss the entire season. And your other one, Elfrid Payton, you immediately trade to the Orlando Magic. Congratulations. You passed on Nikola Jokic twice. Also, Zach LaVine wouldn't have been a bad choice either. Okay, the first 2 years didn't quite work out, so let's take another crack at it. You take Jahlil Okafor. I would have gone with that Devin Booker guy. Whatever.
You's a dummy!
Sam Hinkie's master plan is falling flat on its face due to their piss-poor drafting, so he can get the fuck out. However, the process must continue on without him. His replacement? Jerry Colangelo's son, Brian. It's draft time again. Who are you going with? You're picking Ben Simmons? You sure you don't want that Jaylen Brown guy? Alright, man, you do you. Wait a minute. Joel Embiid didn't fizzle out? He's actually showing potential? Maybe they may have hit on one of them after all. Time will only tell. Jesus, man, your drafting has been absolute trash over these years. You have to get this one right. You gotta get it right sometime. For God's sake, you have the number 1 overall pick for the 2nd year in a row. Take Jason Tatum. Tatum. Markelle Fultz? Ah!
You dummy!
But wait a minute. At least Embiid and Simmons are exceeding expectations, and you finish above 50 wins for the first time in a long time, and you score an upset over the Miami Heat in Dwayne Wade's swan song. It looks like your future is bright. It's not enough to take down the Celtics, even though they were missing Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, but whatever. It's year 1. This should be the year you finally win a trophy. You got a 51-win season. You're picking up where you left off. You acquired an absolute stud in Jimmy Butler in a trade. In the playoffs, 2nd round, once again, it's a nice, hard-fought contest between you and the Raptors. You should win this one. It would take an absolute miracle. Well then. You let Jimmy Butler go and instead gave Tobias Harris a 5-year, $180 million contract, and you gave a max contract to Ben Simmons? Are you kidding me? Well, you're good enough to make the bubble still, but you got swept by the Boston Celtics, which was honestly well-deserved. But good news, Brett Brown has finally been fired. He honestly should have been fired year 2 of the process, but whatever. You make me sick. You bring in Doc Rivers, who, believe it or not, actually has a championship as a head coach. You cruise to the number 1 record, and you face an Atlanta Hawks team who had to win a play-in. You got this in the bag. How are they back in this game? How? Oh, no. You blew another 20-plus point lead in another game? Really? Ben Simmons. He had to pick this fucking time to show his blatant flaws. He had to pick this time to be useless. And Joel Embiid, at this point, has also proven to be a notorious playoff choker. But Simmons was the main scapegoat, even though it should have already been established long ago, because his career has been predicated to stat padding, having the ball in his hands almost all the time on offense to get assists, and sagging off on defense to cherry-pick uncontested rebounds. I guess now was the boiling point. Are you motherfucking kidding me, Howard? You're going after the fans when you blew back-to-back 20-point leads in back-to-back games, which probably would have won you the series, and this was, mind you, one of the easiest paths this franchise has ever had to a championship? Are you fucking dense? All we kept hearing over the past year and change was how he was turning it around, that he was bettering himself, and he does this? Ugh, unfucking believable. You made baby Jesus cry. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Ben Simmons is softer than baby shit. He decides to hold out because he and his mangina can't take the heat. So that begs the question, what's better than one playoff choker? How about two of them? He gets dealt to the Brooklyn Nets, and the 76ers get James Harden. Oh, but it's going to be different this time. Yeah, sure it is. Second round, once more against the Miami Heat. Both Harden and Joel Embiid had multiple games where they shot under 30% as they're eliminated in rather embarrassing fashion, including a game where they lost by over 35 points. Try telling you. Surely this year will be the year, right? They finished with a 54-win record, and Joel Embiid finally wins his precious MVP award, which he's been crying about for months on end after choking in the playoffs again, citing European favoritism. Surely this would be the year where you finally win the real trophy. Nope. He shoots 27% in an elimination game. Really? Losing to Boston again? They must have a fetish for it. And Doc Rivers is soon fired. Swap mediocrities at head coach as you now bring in Nick Nurse, who only has a championship because of Kawhi Leonard's magical run, which we kind of mentioned earlier. James Harden decides to take no accountability for the fact that he's been a career underachiever and choke artist, so he decides he wants out, and he's soon dealt to the Los Angeles Clippers. They're back to the playoffs. Joel Embiid has a 70-point game at one point. Surely it'll happen this time. Nope, not the second round, but the first round this time to the New York Knicks as he tries to injure somebody. Very classy, dude. Holy Christ, man. When will they learn? When you really think about it, blue is the perfect color for the Suxers to wear. 4 decades of blue balling, 4 decades since they last won anything, which, by the way, was the same year New Order Blue Monday dropped. They can't draft, they can't coach, they've wasted careers, and recently, they've invested in talented yet lazy, egotistical athletes, and they have sown unbelievable failure. But nothing of importance will really happen. Josh Harris is too much of an out-of-touch, greedy cocksucker to do what needs to be done. He's just too busy potentially having the entire city of Philadelphia in a vice grip over the next decade or two, with a brand new stadium in the heart of Chinatown, which nobody wants, by the way. Have you seen how much that'll potentially cost? You are hung by the balls by this Sheldon Dinkelberg-looking motherfucker. The Sixers went from being a lolcow to being a lolcow in a much, much more painful fashion. Maybe you should take your asses back to Syracuse. You paid $50 million a year for an aging Paul George?
Oh, wait, you serious?
My God, I never learned.
A lollipop company just called. They'd like you to pose for the world's largest sucker.
This needs to stop now.